This is a presentation of the Sports Source Digital Network, presented by Hearthside Bank.
What is the national opinion on the University of Tennessee football program? We'll talk to a national writer next. Welcome into the Sports Source Digital Network. I'm John Pennington, joined from The Athletic by David Ubben right over here. David, thanks for coming in and being with us. I always appreciate it. Mm-hmm. I wanted to get your opinion, since you are a national writer, I wanted to get your opinion on the national views on Josh Heupel and the Tennessee program. And don't want to get the complete answer now, but has there been a movement in that since he arrived 4 years ago and where this program's gone? And has the Nico situation impacted that national view?
Josh Heupel is not the most compelling figure, and he's very even keel, and he's a quarterback. I think that has served Tennessee well in the last 3 to 4 years. You know, talking to people Saturday, they were like, you know, here comes Tennessee again. There's never a boring day. I was like, it's been kind of boring the last 3 or 4 years, even as the football's been good. So, you know, we'll see.
Right. Yeah, well, that's the interesting thing. We'll talk about the national view. We'll talk about also the Nico Iamaleava situation. But I want you to hit like. If you hit like, what that does is that tells YouTube, hey, somebody likes it, and then they send it out to other Tennessee people. So around the globe, there are Tennessee fans who don't know about this yet because we've only been doing it for about 10 weeks. So click like if you like this content. Hit subscribe, and that way you'll know whenever we post something on the channel. And then also leave your comment, because David and I aren't going to pull any punches today. You may like it, you may not like it, you may have differing opinions. Feel free to share them below. I want to start with the Nico thing before we get into the national stuff. Mm-hmm. Will Overstreet said on my Sunday show this past week that it's going to be a hell of a case study to see how this plays out. Does it work for Tennessee and not for Nico? Does it work for Nico and not for Tennessee? Do they both succeed? Do they both fail, et cetera? He also pointed out this is a ready-made 30 for 30. If it doesn't work out, you're looking at the Marcus Dupree, the player who never was kind of a thing. I would argue you could almost do a 30 for 30 now without even the entry. If you were with even the ending written, if you just wanted to talk about the modern state of college athletics, especially college football, mm-hmm. the Nico story has it all. You've got the first kid to get the crazy $8 million contract. You're picking an 18-year-old high school kid to throw money at. That's Nico. Overbearing handlers, parents. Nico's got that in this story. Collectives that. What do they do? How do they work? Do they say too much? Do they not say enough? You've got that in this story, which goes back to Spire publicizing with you the Nico story to begin with. You've got the NCAA being defanged. UT, like all the schools, said, we want rules on NIL. The NCAA came back and said, okay, here are the rules, and you violated them. So UT says, who are you to give us rules? We're going to sue you. All right, that's in this story as well. And then finally, you knew it was coming. Somebody was going to do a holdout thing at some point. I thought it would come before a college football playoff. I didn't think it would come before a spring game. Mm-hmm. But now you've got a holdout. Nico Iamaleava is really the face of this age, more than any other player in the country. Mm-hmm. Wouldn't you have to agree with that?
Yeah, for sure. He's already lived 9 lives, and he's only 3 years into his college career. Yeah. We'll see kind of what the future holds for him. It's been a compelling saga at every stage of all of this, and since he got to Tennessee, it's been kind of what people had sort of hoped. His good early reports. Had some moments last year. Was a little bit underwhelming. Yeah. That sort of is a key part of a lot of this.
Yeah, has he earned what they've paid him so far?
Yeah, and I think that's a pretty compelling back. If you want more money, people forget. Like, you did earn almost $2 million when you were in high school, 2,000 miles away. Yeah. You did earn another $2 million while you were sitting there watching Hendon Hooker.
Bowl,
watching Hendon Hooker, Joe Milton, tear it up. And so, I get that. And then this year, the reality is, if he'd thrown 40 touchdown passes last year, he's getting $4 million.
That's exactly right.
Period.
Yes.
And so it's not like it's a cheap thing. It's not like it's a, we're against players holding out or ask. You can ask for more.
Yeah.
I don't think anybody's mad at him for asking for more. No, everybody does that.
This was a principled stance for the good of all football.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, anybody can ask for more. Yeah. But that if they don't give it to you and you walk away, that's when there starts to be some repercussions for your actions. And if you don't perform the way that people would hope that you perform, then you're not going to. But if you do, people are going to – guess what? If Hendon Hooker had asked for $4 million after his first year, they're going to give it to him. Yeah. So that's not what we have here.
Well, no, it's not based on performance at all. I mean, you look at I've said this on this channel before. If you look at the NFL, The guys who hold out are the stars. Okay, you don't see a guy hold out because, oh, the guy in front of me just went down and I'm the only thing you got, so you better pay me more. And that's more of what this was. Now, Nico is the starter, but he's asking for money because what everybody else around him got.
Yeah.
Well, that doesn't carry water if you're not earning it.
I think that's sort of the part of this where, like, just to play devil's advocate, I can see from their perspective where they're at. Because when they got paid, he was the highest paid quarterback for like 6 months. And then more and more people got paid. He's probably outside of the top dozen right now. If you want $4 million, that's going to put you at or near the top of the market. Yeah. And so I think you look around and you say, well, I don't think Nico's the best quarterback in the country. Why do we want to pay him like that? It's easy to believe that.
Or top 12. Yeah.
Yes, that's probably a fair assessment too. When you're in high school and you're the number 2 player in the class and Arch is kind of a non-factor in the NIL thing, I can see like, oh, we want to pay this guy, we want to place our bet on this future guy. But now that we have like a body of work and you want to be paid like a top guy and you're not a top guy, listen, you know, what Derek Carr, whoever, Zach Wilson can run up to whoever they want and say, you should pay me like Pat Mahomes. You can ask, but the program's going to say, no, you're not that on the field. And I think that's where solid agency, having people in your corner that are able to tell you hard truths of like, hey, you're overplaying your hand here, and it doesn't seem like that's there.
Well, and it's interesting. I've talked to people who think that Tennessee basically Spire, Tennessee, they slow played this. They thought, all right, he's bitching in December, but we get through this portal window, it's taken care of because he's not going to leave in the spring.
You would think.
But the problem is you aren't negotiating with somebody who has a professional agent.
Yes.
You're negotiating with somebody you want to talk spur of the moment. He had a son that was committed to UCLA for months, and then on signing day, flips to Arkansas, having never visited there. Now
they left their high school team in the middle of the season and were ruled ineligible because maybe you didn't do your due diligence, your homework before you make a rash decision.
Yeah.
Not to say that that's what's happening here, but it has echoes.
Right, and that's why I'm not going to dump it all on the Iamaleavas. They started it, if you will, and they get most of the mud. But at the same time, if you're Spire or Tennessee, you didn't need to play this as though you're negotiating across the table from Drew Rosenhaus. You're negotiating against an absolute wild card with a history of being a wild card. Hindsight 2020, obviously. If you saw this coming in December and he's shopping himself to Miami in December, pull the Band-Aid in December. And when he's got options and you've got options.
Yeah.
Because now nobody's got great options. We'll see what happens, but the options are limited. Even if somebody finds the right guy or Nico finds the right school, it's still that the options are limited. It's not what it would have been. You're not going to have the bidding war for him that you would have had. And Tennessee's probably going to have to pay more for somebody out of the portal than they would have.
I think there's a sense that, yes, you know, the Iamaleava camp was unhappy. But the sense that I got talking to people around Tennessee this weekend is just like, I can't believe you actually did it. You actually hit the nuclear button. I don't think anybody thought that was going to happen. You can go into the summer and be like grousing and angry, and then the first time you throw for 5 touchdowns, you know, if you throw for 350 and 4 bills against Syracuse in week 1, then you go back and you say, hey, and that's a real thing that happens a lot, and you have more leverage then because people are like the conquering hero. There was a pretty low simmering grumble coming into this offseason, and the way you ignite that is with your play, and Nico hadn't done anything, especially as well. I think he played okay in the playoff game. He wasn't the issue that it went wrong.
Yeah, he wasn't the problem, but at the same time,
when that's the lasting image, the last time the fans saw you, and you got ran off the field, albeit by a great team, you lose some leverage. That's just the reality of it. And again, this goes back to having good agency, and that recognizes this.
I think I did the numbers. He had 14 against the losing teams on their schedule last year, including FCS team Chattanooga. He had 14 touchdown passes. He had 5 in 6 games against teams with winning records.
Yeah.
I mean, that's all you need to know. His performance was like he averaged 230 yards passing per game against teams with losing records, 170. A 60-yard swing. It's not all on him, but if you're going to ask for that kind of money, we are going to look at your numbers.
Yeah,
exactly. And we are going to look at what you produced. And I'm sure his father would then come around and say, well, how's he supposed to produce when you got these at left tackle and you got receivers dropping balls?
Not entirely wrong there.
There's part of that. Let me ask you this one. And I love having you in because we go off track immediately. But one thing that's kind of a side note to all this, the Nico era, since 2023, the class of 2023, 7 of the top 8 quarterbacks who signed with their college have already left that college. The only one who stayed is Arch Manning, who, one, really doesn't need money through the family, but is getting Texas NIL money, so they got it. He's not in a rush to get to the NFL. Oh, I got to get there in 3 years. You know, his Uncle Peyton just sat around at UT and said, I'm staying an extra year. So he's the white whale. The other top 7 quarterbacks in that class have already transferred, and it's not even been 2 full years. My question for you is, would schools be better off investing their money in a portal quarterback every year and stop grabbing high school kids like Nico and saying, here's your signing bonus in high school, and now we're going to pay you to sit for a year and learn? Would it be better off to spend your money on a portable quarterback? And there's risk in both.
Yeah.
But when you're seeing guys come in and most of these guys are sitting and they're transferring anyway, I'd rather give my money to a transfer guy to begin with.
It's hard to say. I think that more often than not, maybe not specifically at quarterback, but I think certainly at quarterback sometimes, the elite guys are probably not going to go in the portal. They're going to sign with the power out of high school. They might sit a year. They might blow up. But the big time guys, the Jeremiah Smiths of the world, can do that. Now, sometimes guys hit late.
Okay, you're talking non-quarterbacks.
Well, in general. I mean, I think certainly sometimes
quarterbacks.
Elite
when we're talking 7 of the top 8 quarterbacks.
Yes.
Okay.
But I'm saying like the elite players, not sort of the elite prospects.
Gotcha.
And sometimes you got guys that are late bloomers that blow up late that do transfer. I mean, you know what, Baker Mayfield stands out, Kyler Murray stands out. You know, obviously Joe Burrow is like the poster child for like the success of the portal and all these things. But like, it is an inexact science. So I generally think you build your program through high school recruiting. It does seem like in the quarterback race specifically, if they're not on the field a little bit as a true freshman and then clearly the starter in year 2, you are kind of playing a dangerous game. And there's a lot of things that can go wrong between that. And so I think there's risk in both. I would lean toward high school because I just think that being in your program, establishing that, not having to build up those relationships, having a voice that players listen to, you build that up quietly over 2 years before you become the starter. But it's hard to do.
Nobody seems to be doing it.
Nobody does seem to be doing it.
When this went down with Nico over the weekend, I went through the national stats from last year, and I looked at the top quarterbacks in passer rating, the top quarterbacks in yards per game passing, and I was trying to figure out, all right, who could Tennessee go? And, you know, they're all mad that teams might have tampered with Nico. Now everybody's cool with Tennessee going and tampering to find somebody else.
Yeah.
But I was looking at it, and what I found was, okay, this guy started here, played here, and now he's available again. This guy's been at 3 schools. This guy's been at 2 schools. This guy's in his 4th school, so he's not available. This guy had 3 schools, 2 schools. They've all transferred. It's unbelievable now. I agree with you in terms of building in recruiting. You look at Ohio State, and everybody talks about, well, look who they got in the portal. Their portal guys were like icing on the cake.
Yeah.
They built a team through recruiting.
I think 18 of their 22 starters last year were high school recruits.
Yeah. I just think quarterback is the one position. Because you pay so much money there, can you afford? I'd rather spend that money on wide receivers and offensive linemen, defensive linemen out of high school, and not spend as much on a quarterback out of the portal as opposed to I'm paying the quarterback and I'm paying this bench guy who's coming next who's sitting. I mean, the money they threw at Nico to never play, and other schools are doing the same. That's crazy to me. But go ahead.
One thing that can help is having a booster that sells his company for $4 billion like Texas Tech had.
Yeah.
So Texas Tech is killing it in the portal this year.
Yeah.
You know, Tennessee, more oil derricks, guys. Come on now.
Well, and the bad thing is you had the Haslam oil money. What are the odds? You had oil money in Tennessee.
Yeah, I mean, you could just get the quarterback and the offensive lineman and the receivers, but, you know, that gets expensive in a hurry.
Exactly. Well, let's shift this a little bit because when Josh Heupel arrived here, and I want to talk about the national perception of Josh Heupel, be that national media. You travel all over. What do other coaches around the country think of Josh Heupel? What do administrators think of Josh Heupel? When he first got here, I remember speaking to you, and one of your takes was, and you'd heard it from people around, it's like, well, he studied the offense, but it's not his offense. Okay, and in 2022, I was thinking, who cares if he knows it? He's doing pretty well with it. Last couple of years, that's changed a little bit. What is the national perception of Heupel, his offense? How do people view him now as opposed to when he arrived at Tennessee?
I think he's changed it a lot. I think, again, like we mentioned before, the quarterback in him, where he is kind of the same guy every day, I think really, really helped him.
Yeah.
Jeremy Pruitt, When things went wrong, he just wanted to do everything. Like, well, this guy's not good at this job. So I'm going to do this. People forget, like, the Vanderbilt game his first year, he was calling offensive plays and calling defensive plays. Well, there's a reason why nobody does that. It doesn't work.
He fired an assistant after 4 games.
Yes.
He just brought in.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I think with Heupel, that sort of smoothness that is just built into him as the son of a coach, played quarterback forever, has been on staffs. Bob Stoops was kind of the same way. That helped him a lot, I think. And so as he's come here, they haven't had too rough a time. Their build has been more rapid than people thought. Yeah. But he has really rejuvenated his reputation. Okay. I think he was the right coach at the right time. Mm-hmm. I think he's not like all out there as like, oh, I'm going to be on social or doing all these stunts, but he's very much a player's coach. When he got here.
Which I prefer, by the way.
Yeah.
If you give me the choice of him or Kiffin, I would take the Heupel approach all day. Every day.
And in 2025, in the current era, the sort of the my way or the highway guys, like they're kind of a dying breed. You have to kind of adapt. And so, when he first got this job here, I talked to a bunch of people at UCF just kind of about like how he made his program. And it was a lot of like, no, like he'll say hi to you in the hallways. Like he let us be who we are. He kind of adapted to us, learned who we were, tried to adapt the program around to us. Like players' leadership councils could vote like, hey, are we practicing inside or outside today? What are we doing?
Yeah.
They had real agency. I think the players really appreciated that. And his ability and okayness with embracing NIL, leaning into Spire. Hey, I'm okay with paying these guys. It's uncomfortable for a lot of people. They don't like this. They don't like turning these into transactional relationships. You can make it as relational as you want, but at the end of the day, it is a transaction. I think his comfort level with that helped Tennessee get some really good players and help the program. So I think he was the right coach at the right time. And I think this last week, it didn't seem like he's trying to fight PR battles. It didn't seem like he's trying to bend over backwards for a guy. It seems like, well, this is the program.
Yeah.
We're going to try to keep it moving. Yeah, you're probably not going to be as good this fall. But you know what? If you're still the coach here in 5 years, I feel pretty confident that what he did over the weekend is going to make that program better and more likely to have him be the coach here in 5 years than if he's chasing Nico, leaves practice, calls him up, knocks on his door at the apartment. Like, I think that costs you with the other 100 guys chasing the one guy.
Well, and I also think he scored some points with fans because they're always going to, if there's a controversy, they're always going to come back and side with Mama. And when he made the comment that no one's bigger than the program, and it's funny, the number of Oklahoma fans who reached out to me to say, he got that from Stoops. Stoops said that.
There's only one, Oklahoma.
And I'm like, and I'm like, well, there's no I in team. You're going to have to go back a long way to find the first guy who said nobody's bigger than the program. But anyway, when he said that, he got a lot of people in his corner, I think. Now, I think they'll be out of his corner if he's trailing at halftime of the season opener.
I think that's true.
That's just part of it. But I think he's done a tremendous job. I think he'd be getting more. It's funny, the number of people I talk to who still think, well, we need to be on par with Georgia. And until he does that, I'm not giving him any credit. And it's like, well, wait a second. When he arrived, it was, let's see how he does against Georgia, Alabama, and Florida.
So pretty well against them.
Doing pretty good. He's 2 out of 3 the last 3 years against Alabama and Florida. And now those don't count. It's just Georgia. But I wondered nationally, I mean, if he was on the market tomorrow, is his market better, clearly, than it was at UCF? Surely.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, at UCF,
he's built his reputation in what he's done at Tennessee.
Absolutely, and I think it's been in some ways a little bit confusing because, he set the world on fire with Drew Lock at Mizzou, and that parlayed him into that UCF gig. People in the coaching community were surprised that he got that job. And then it was not going in the right direction at UCF.
In the hindsight, he had his one bad year was the COVID year. So you look at it, it's like, okay, how much do you put on?
Yeah.
Because that is the outlier so far for his career. But go ahead, sorry.
Yeah, I think the trajectory was not going in the right direction. Yeah. And when he left, right or wrong, UCF fans, they weren't exactly holding the funeral. They were fine with it. And so, does that motivate a guy to come? I don't know. Does he do better at places that have bigger resources? It's a very different challenge trying to win at UCF in the American versus trying to win here. I don't know. But ultimately, you can only judge a guy for what he's done, and this is a results business. And the results have been pretty unimpeachable since then. And, the inner workings of the program, you don't hear a lot of, the foundation is rotting type of stuff. Like, people like being in the facility, and they're doing well. Fans
don't care, but how many times do you hear any kind of police blotter stuff with this program?
That's a good point, too.
You don't hear it, man.
Yeah.
And the when he got here, and you had 30 guys that had hit the portal as soon as Pruitt left, and UT's going through that whole
NCAA clouds hanging over.
That's right.
It was very bad.
Yeah, and he became. I remember they played dodgeball, they played volleyball as a team. They got together, they watched the Super Bowl together, and I remember thinking, well, everybody that's a new coach comes in and tries to run people off. I'm going to be the hardest hard-assed in the history of hard-asses. Mm-hmm. Well, in this case, he couldn't be because he'd already lost everybody. So I thought, how much of this changes next year when you get big numbers? And you talk to people who've been over there, it's like, no, that wasn't a show. That's him. Mm-hmm. He really, it's like you talk about, the players have agency, the players have a voice. He wants them to feel like it is a family. So it wasn't just a ruse, oh gosh, we can't afford to run people off, so I'm going to play the nice guy. No, he is kind of a nice guy back there, but he's not a pushover because there's good discipline.
Mm-hmm. And I think part of that, too, at that particular time, people forget, not only were you in a program where people didn't love being in the facility under Jerry Pruitt, but that was right after the COVID year as well. So not only did they not love being in the facility, they're being discouraged being in the facility. Like, the stuff you heard on the back of that 2020 season was just like, these guys like don't know each other because they don't hang out that much. They're not seeing each other at the facility. If you didn't have a prior relationship when you got to campus or you weren't tight with the guy before COVID hit, like it had been like a year almost at that point where like you have very limited interaction with your guys other than practice. Like there's not a lot of milling around the locker room, hanging out, and that really caused a discord in the team. And I think those early things, people can sort of laugh at it or roll their eyes, but like I think it did have a pretty big impact on like knowing your teammates and caring your teammates and competing with your teammates, even if it's something silly as like dodgeball or softball or whatever.
Well, we also had, and if you want to find this here on the Sports Source Digital Network, you can. Be sure to like, subscribe, and comment. But VFL Ollie Lane did a show with myself and John Wilkerson called Give Him Six about a month ago, where we talked about the 6 biggest changes from Pruitt to Heupel. Mm-hmm. And one of those, one of the biggest, was nobody liked the staff under Pruitt. We didn't want, as soon as it was like the bell goes off and everybody's out. It's like, work's out, we're gone. Whereas Heupel gets here and now people want to spend extra time at the facility. They don't mind staying there. That's huge. Mm-hmm. That's huge if you got guys that want to be around each other, but also I'm in here to get better, as opposed to screw that, I'm going home. I'm not going to stick around and listen to these guys yelp at me.
You can see it in everybody's job. I mean, wherever you work, like it isn't just the work itself, but like if you're miserable around your superiors, you don't have a great relationship with the people that you work with, your draw to that place is going to be more tenuous. You are not going to enjoy yourself, not going to want to work as hard. That's just the reality of it. And if you can change that, there's a reason why almost universally across sports, whether that be college football, hockey, lacrosse, whatever, the best teams generally do like each other. Yeah. They generally have real relationships off the field. Because if you want to be around somebody and hold each other accountable and do all those things, these player-led teams, there has to be a level of mutual respect and like a love there that this guy's not just doing this to just be difficult. It's like, no, we're working for the same thing. And that, again, you can call it like Disney sports movie, all the stuff that you want, but like that, those dynamics are real.
Yeah. Well, and that's one reason. See, I consider all that off-field stuff. I've seen what's happened at Tennessee, which we're about to get into. Mm-hmm. And I give more credit to Heupel for putting out those fires than I think a lot of fans do. You still hear people like, well, if he doesn't get us on par with Georgia, we need to fire him and find the next guy. And I'm like, do you not remember what happened after Fulmer? Have you not seen what's gone on at Florida? I mean, Will Muschamp wins 11 games. Yeah, but it's not a good enough offense. Run him out. Mm-hmm. Okay, bring in the next guy. Dan Mullen got us to an SEC championship game, but he's not recruiting well enough. Run him out. Okay, now last year they turned and they flipped it and they said, all right, we're just going to hold on to this guy. And suddenly it got a little better. I think Tennessee fans need to realize there's nothing wrong with 10-2. You've averaged 10 wins a year the last 3 years. If you'd told me that with the mess he inherited, I never would have believed it. I'd be looking at it thinking this is a guy we can build on, and maybe he falls into a championship, which most of these coaches need a special year where everything goes their way. There are only so many Sabans out there. Mm-hmm. And we'll see what happens with Kirby Smart long term. I don't know. I get the feeling he's going to be Dabo Swinney, where you hit the crest and back down the mountain. We'll see. I could be wrong. I just don't think there's going to be anybody like Saban who runs off 7 in a row. And if you're the University of Tennessee, if you told me for the next 10 years you can win 10 games a year and then one year have a national championship, that's a win. I think a lot of fans would look at it and say, I want a national championship every year. Mm-hmm. And if you've got 10 wins a year, and on average, which means you'll have a 9 or an 8 in there, but if you have that on average and you've got a good program that people can be proud of and you're not constantly on the police blotter, I think that's a win. So to me, I'm probably more in the Heupel camp than a lot of people. So this year when they go 6-6, this will be thrown back in my face. All right, let me ask you this about the program. How has the perception of Tennessee's program changed? Not the team, because look, they made a playoff, I get that. But I'm talking about the wild face of dysfunction that this program was for 10, 15 years there. Just a nightmare. Now that you get Danny White in there, who's very forward-thinking, very progressive. Their fundraising is off the chart. You can even take it outside of just football. They're doing well in everything. What is the national perception of Tennessee? And does this Nico thing have people starting to think, uh-oh, this smells like the old Tennessee? What's the national perception from people around the country of Tennessee right now?
I think to start with the Nico thing, I feel like most people have applauded how Tennessee's handled it because it was very matter of fact. It was very like, we're not going to spend a week in limbo and turn this into a circus. It's like, well, he didn't come to practice. We're going to just see what we can do, move forward. We're not going to play these games, basically. And I don't know that every coach would have handled it that way, especially with a 5-star quarterback. Right. It is what it is. And I think, again, some of this goes back to Heupel. Like, the spotlight fishbowl is not really new to him. Like, people have been talking about him, assessing what he did or didn't do for a long time, both good and bad. You know, he had some bad moments as a player. Obviously, as a coach, had some good, some bad moments. Like, I don't think he spends a lot of mental energy worrying about that. And I don't think you could say that about a lot of coaches that have come through here. So that helps in general. I think in terms of the program, there's a sustainability that has not been here in a long time. Okay, so Bush Jones wins 9 games 2 years in a row. He would like a statue erected in honor of those seasons. I don't know that he's going to get those. But the very next season...
He was carried off the field.
But the very next season, the bottom falls out. Yeah. And you kind of knew, hey, there's some foundational issues here. Well, Tennessee, if you expand the 12-team playoff, to the first, Hendon year, you're in the playoff 2 out of 3 years. Yep. That's a dangerous team. The second year that Hendon Hooker was here. Last year, you got a pretty bad matchup. It is what it is.
If it's seeded the way it probably should be seeded, you might have had SMU here.
Yeah, maybe.
And then you make it to a second round, and even if you get bombed then, you at least win a playoff game.
Yeah.
So part of that's the seeding.
And so I think not only just making the playoff and being a playoff team in the current realm 2 of the last 3 years, but it's like you didn't have to be Superman to do that. The program didn't do these unbelievable things. It just sort of did kind of lived up to the talent level that was on the roster.
Yep.
And last year, I think that was the same case. Like, it wasn't unbelievable that they made the playoff. And I think that there's something to that. Like, if you looked at a lot of the last 15 years of the program, if they stood there at the end of the season, they were one of the last 12 teams, you'd have been like, how in the world did they do that? Nobody's asking how Tennessee did that the last 2 or 3 years. And I think that is key. And as you move forward, they got some issues. They got to figure some stuff out. They got to rebuild the offensive line. They need some receivers to grow up. I did like Rodarius Smith, by the way. I didn't watch a lot of the spring game because I was talking to people. But every time I looked up, Rodarius Smith was making like some crazy catch. I was like, this kid looks really good. So anyway, like, you have a pretty sustainable foundation. And I think that, to me, is the difference in a lot of places that you see them go up and down, up and down. And that's been, the case here and a lot of other places for a long time.
Well, I think one thing that's interesting, and now I'm just going to mix program and Heupel here. We're off the plan now. But one thing I wouldn't have projected, because you look at Art Briles, he won with that offense. Last year, and you can make the case if they'd had a better offense, they might have been really competing for the national championship. But I never dreamed coming in when Heupel arrived here that we'd ever be talking about, well, they're winning with defense. And I get it that we're supposed to be offense, where's the offense? Agreed. At the same time, most of these guys who are built a certain way, they can't win another way. The really great guys do. I don't know that he's going to be a really great guy. But there aren't many coaches who are offensive-minded that look at it. They're going to continue, in other words, to say, well, I'm going to go for this 4th down at my own 30 because my offense will do it. Even though their offense can't do it. Heupel last year started playing to his defense.
Yeah.
It's like, let's be smart. Let's just punt it out of here. let's be more conservative in the way we call plays. And that frustrates people when they look at it. But in the big picture, I'm looking at that thinking,
It's winning football.
this guy can win in a number of different ways. I think that's a positive. Now, fix the offense. Fix it. But at the same time, he's a little bit better coach, and I think the program is a little bit stronger than I ever anticipated when he got here. And I wasn't down on the hire. I wanted him to go after some QB guru with a system, because if you do that, it allows you to punch up a little bit. You don't necessarily have to worry about losing to Georgia State, because your offense is going to be good enough. Even on a bad day, you'll take care of those.
Yeah.
But to see them last year win with defense, that impressed me. And I just wonder if that changed what people around the country thought, oh, this is just a guy running Bryle's system. Okay, well, last year that was not winning with Bryle's system.
Yeah.
That was winning a completely different way.
Well, I think it's a testament to loyalty. Like, I think he understands, like, a lot of people, and he talked to coaches enough, like, they understand, like, there's a ton of good coaches out there. It matters who you have. Like, the best coaches don't look great when they don't have great players.
That's right. Yep.
First couple of years, there was a not insignificant percentage of the fan base who wanted to run Tim Banks out of town. Well, Josh Heupel said, no, like, I like this guy. Like, we brought him in here. They didn't have really a history, but I like what he's doing. And guess what? It paid off. And I think, yes, to some degree, you can be loyal to a fault. I don't think Josh Heupel is near that line.
Yeah.
I think he understands. I'm a big believer in continuity. Like, the line between continuity and loyalty to a fault, I think, is much wider than people think. If you can just have the same voices, doing the same things, while also bringing new guys in, these expanded staffs, we give room for having interesting analysts and people that have had interesting experiences. Bring in Seth Luttrell.
Seth Luttrell, there you
is
go.
an interesting one. Like, I remember talking to him when he was the coach at UNT and, like, trying to make those things work. And obviously they go back a long time to their days at OU and, like, Landry Jones in the mix. Like, he hasn't really been in coaching, but he was a really good player.
Yeah.
And, like, he's had interesting life experiences. Like, just getting these interesting people in the room that have new ideas, but you keep your staff continuity as much as possible. And people always want to, we got to fire this coordinator, we got to fire this position coach, we got to do all those things. Generally, that stuff works a lot less often than it makes your program worse.
Yeah.
And I think, again, it speaks to what we said at the beginning. The sort of even keel of, like, let's not do anything rash here. Like, that pays off over time. And I think you look at that defense last year, if you fire Tim Banks, in year 2, I straight up don't believe that defense is what it is last year. And part of it is having really good players. Their defensive line, bunch of monsters, and they played unbelievable football. And a lot of those guys were experienced guys that have been here a long time. The Amari Thomases of the world, the James Pierces of the world. And when you stay with the same coaches, generally you can build through the high school ranks.
Well, you sound very positive, so that's good. David, I appreciate you coming in, man.
Yeah, appreciate it.
I know you're going to be taking off from Knoxville, moving to another market, Charlotte. It looks like.
Looks like it, yeah.
I can always cut that out if you don't want that out there. But,
No, it's fine.
I wanted to say it just to say thanks for. I'm trying to think. I think you were on our show. When did you move to Knoxville?
18. I think I came on in, like, 19.
So you've been on the Sports Source for a lot of years, and I appreciate it.
Appreciate it.
Been doing this, and I'm sure I'll try and grab you via Zoom in the future. David Ubben of The Athletic, you can always read his stuff there. He does a great job. Thank you very much. Like, subscribe, comment for us. If you dislike that, if we're completely wrong, if Josh Heupel is the devil and he needs to be fired, go ahead and leave that in the comment. Or if you agree with us, leave that in the comment. And we will see you next time right back here on the Sports Source Digital Network.